We all know Whitebeard was viable in OPO6, since it topped basically every single week. But I believe Whitebeard is still viable in the EB01 format. In fact, the deck has multiple tops already. This is the current deck list I'm running. It doesn't mean this is the best version, as it really depends on your local and what decks represents the most. Initially excluded Thatch because it's not good against Sakazuki and Moria, which is true, but just don't play it and save it as a counter. Thatch is good in Mirror against Luffy, Enel and Uta. Realistically, you only need 2 counter events in the game, so that's why I cut down the guard point. Otama is great against 8-cost Kid in case you don't see your ace. It's also good to KO Kazan, Shiraya, block a Law, block a Uta and block a Mako. It's just a great 2k counter overall. I took out the 2k Sanji and replaced them with 2k Luffy. 2k Sanji is only playable in matchups where 1. You don't need to play 9-cost Whitebeard, and 2. You can protect yourself with blocker. However, nearly every deck has a way to remove your blocker, so I would rather play 2k Luffy. 99% of the time, you will just use it as a 2k counter, but in a niche scenario where you have absolutely nothing to play, you can just play the Luffy if you need an attacker. Izo is very good if you can play it on curve, but it's a break if you draw it later on. Rush Luffy and Ace continue to be the superior choice against Sakazuki and Moria. Hidden Killer is good into 4 life leaders such as Sakazuki, Law, and now Sabo and Yamato. It has the same function as Rush Zoro, where you basically spend 4 Dawn to take a life off your opponent or they drop 2 counters. As a 5k character, 99% of the time you wouldn't protect it. Shiraya is a OPO6 card, but it's worth considering as it is good into Mirror, Yamato, and Luffy. Liu Oz Jr. is amazing against Moria when you're going second. Even though the effect is once per turn, Moria wouldn't want to spend too many cards to remove it. Other than this, I think Thatch is just better. For Mulligan, I would go with the typical 1, 5, 7, 9 curve. I would just keep the hand if I see a Searcher and a Rush Luffy. If I see the 5-7 or 5-9 curve, but not a Searcher, I would still keep it. Go first for every matchup except for Mirror. Red Purple Law is obviously the biggest winner of EB01. Although the deck itself is weak to 6k leaders since Law is full of 5k characters and it doesn't have a lot of Dawn to work with. However, a lot of cards in Law counter Whitebeard pretty hard. Shiraya is a very efficient blocker and attacker against the Whitebeard leader. Mr. 2 is best used to copy 9-cost Whitebeard. Sure, you can Mako or Robin it, but a good player would just drop it right before your 9-cost Whitebeard turn. Hidden Killer is a free 7k attack after the leader ability. Blocker Law remains a threat to Whitebeard for obvious reasons, and they have a bunch of blockers to stop us. Against a bad Law player, this is a very easy matchup since they will use up their Dawn pretty quickly. You should rush their life and ignore any 5k characters unless it's a free removal. The trick to play against Shiraya is to attack with lead of a 6k even if you're planning to drop 9-cost Whitebeard. It's likely that your opponent will guard with the 2k counter instead of block and 1k. Remember, Robin can KO Mr. 2. Ace plus Robin can KO Shiraya. Otama plus Mako or 9-cost Whitebeard can KO Shiraya or block a Law. And Ace plus 9-cost Whitebeard can KO any blocker. So against Black Yellow Luffy, you want to see a Rush Luffy, 9-cost Whitebeard and blocker Mako. You can either rush it or starve it, but the issue of starving Luffy is that if you don't have blocker Mako, he will just do big attacks on your leader. Also, starving Luffy allows them to KO your Rush Luffy or blocker Mako with Sabo. So your goal is to chip away the counter slowly, and I would not attack with a Rush Luffy unless you're on still alive or you have a blocker Mako to protect it. Enel is fine in OPO5, but it has definitely become more challenging since OPO6. The 0-cost counter trigger just straight up loses you the game, and Kingdom Come just removes the best character you can possibly have against Enel. To win this matchup, you need to develop a board and you need at least 3 attacks to win when your opponent is on 1 life. Obviously, the more the better in case of trigger. Your goal is to chip away the counters before you go for lethal. This should be obvious, but don't attack Enel's last life if it's your last attack, since it just gives him a free filter. Remember, Rush Enel's effect is negated when you have a Luffy on the field. Uta has suddenly gotten more popular and it's a challenging matchup for Whitebeard. Not only it has 5 life, Uta has so much draw power as well as ability to double attack with Army Invincible. They also have a lot of blockers as well as 8-cost Kid. In this matchup, you really need to see Ace or Otama to get rid of their 8-cost Kid. Whitebeard is also really good here. Not only you get a beefy body, but it can also KO blocker Uta with Otama or Ace. Stage Sakazuki is becoming more popular since it's so good against 4-cost characters, but thankfully it's not as good into 5-cost characters, so it's actually good for us. Other than this, T-Bone is pretty much the only new card Sakazuki got. It's better but doesn't make a huge difference. If they play broke, I would try and clear that card off the field. Red Yellow Sabo is actually an uneasy matchup as they can gain a life every turn. Therefore, it is advisable to rush their life. However, sometimes you should also clear off their character so they don't get to gain a life for free. Whitebeard has increased in popularity ever since the first week of OPO6. In this matchup, you want to see the following cards. Blocker Marco is the best defense you can possibly have against Whitebeard, as they don't really have a good way to remove it. Rush Luffy goes past their Blocker Marco if you can stick it on the board. Both Thatch and 9-cost Whitebeard are just big bodies that provide so much value every time you attack. Remember that 9-cost Whitebeard with Otama can KO your opponent's Blocker Marco. And Ace gives you a really efficient way to clear your opponent's characters. You should play around their Ace before their 7 or 8 Dawn turn by not attacking with your characters. This is the only matchup that I prefer second. Going second allows you to play 3 characters before your 9-cost Whitebeard turn, and your opponent also drops to 0 life before you do.